These 5 suspects, several of them family members, are under arrest for allegedly treating a woman like an animal for months, allegedly holding her captive, starving her, shooting her with a BB gun. Police say they found the woman handcuffed to a metal exercise rack outside a home. Firefighters needed to cut the cuffs off of the woman. She was allegedly naked from the waist down. Not only are these allegations shocking, it's also shocking what the suspects reportedly told investigators about why they would allegedly do this to someone that they considered a longtime friend. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Before we begin this episode of On the Case, I need to talk about our partner and sponsor for this episode, the app Upside. It's a free app that gives you cash back when you buy daily essentials like gas and groceries. Upside, it's easy to use and it's free. I use it a lot when I pump gas or go to a place like 7-Eleven or even Taco Bell. And again, this is real cash back we're talking about. So after you spend, money will appear in your Upside account, and then you transfer it straight to your bank. So here's what you do. Download the Upside app for free. Buy whatever you plan to purchase. You pay like you normally would with a credit card or a debit card. Then you file a claim in the app, and then you get money back. So to find out how much you could save with Upside, click the link in the description or scan the QR code on our screen and use promo code OTC to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Wow, do we have a lot to unpack in this case out of Austin, Texas. Where do we even begin? Well, police say it all started on Thursday with a sight outside of a home that is so hard to believe. They say there was a woman reportedly chained to a punching bag stand, like a piece of exercise equipment, and she was naked from the waist down. Now, here's a picture of the house where this woman was allegedly outside, according to the address that was given to us by Austin police. It's a trailer, it seems. It has a fence surrounding it. Police say that they were responding to help this woman. She showed signs of distress. She had visible injuries, and they say it appeared that she had been restrained for a long time. Now, just wait until you hear what an arrest affidavit found. But before I get into that, let's talk about how police came in contact with the suspects, and let's talk about who these suspects are. These are their mugshots. There are 5 of them. Police say as officers were helping the woman allegedly chained to the exercise equipment, the people inside the house started to come out. You have 51-year-old Michelle Garcia, who is allegedly the grandmother of the family. She has 2 daughters who were inside the home, 21-year-old Crystal Garcia and 32-year-old Mashe Carney. Now, Carney's husband is Juan Pablo Castro. And then you have a family friend identified as Maynard LaFavors. All of them are facing charges, and the details that are coming out of this arrest affidavit, they are just bizarre. The Austin American-Statesman, the big newspaper in Austin, that was the outlet first to publish the details in this affidavit, so let's dive into it. This affidavit says that Michelle Garcia, the grandmother, allegedly told police that she started handcuffing the victim outside months ago. She says that she did it because the woman would go to the bathroom in the view of their neighbors outside. And the victim actually said that the reason she was being restrained is that she couldn't leave. So Garcia's daughter, Carney, allegedly said that the woman was restrained so she wouldn't steal after neighbors complained. So you have the mom saying it's because the victim would go to the bathroom. You have one daughter saying it's because she was stealing and neighbors didn't like it. And then you have the victim saying that she was being restrained so she couldn't leave the house. A lot of different stories coming in as investigators are trying to figure out what's going on. Now, the woman Carney, the daughter of Michelle Garcia, said that the woman had mental health issues, but she also tried to argue, it appears, that the victim agreed to be restrained like this. Now, this is who Carney is married to. His name is Juan Pablo Castro. He's also facing charges. Here he is on Facebook. You can see the tattoos around his neck match the tattoos of the man in the mugshot. Now, what Castro told police is perhaps the sickest of all the details coming in this story to this point. He said he bought an electric BB gun, allegedly, so he could shoot this female victim because he didn't want to touch her. And he said he would chase the victim around the yard, shooting her with BBs, according to the police document. The victim actually allegedly had a BB in her eye when doctors checked her out. Castro also said, quote, "I bleeping hate her," when talking about the victim. Now, this is all reportedly said to police after they found this woman strapped to this boxing bag stand outside the house and she was naked from the waist down. Then, investigators write that this family, these 5 people, allegedly created a routine for this woman. Now, according to the arrest affidavit, the woman was starved. She was allegedly fed only a plate of food a day, and it was at dinner, and she slept outside, and she was handcuffed to that stand with both wrists pinned behind her back. Now, Michelle Garcia, the grandma, allegedly told investigators that the woman was only fed once because she thought she was, quote, chunky. Police say that the victim seemed malnourished, according to the arrest affidavit. Now, the woman told police that she got in trouble the night before she was found outside, and that is when she was handcuffed to the stand. Temperatures were in the 40s that night in Austin. Police also say there were 3 children in the home. Those kids are now in state custody. One of the kids was only 4 years old. We do see on Castro's social media that he's in pictures with who appear to be 2 children. Now, according to online court records, all 5 suspects are now facing charges of first-degree aggravated kidnapping, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, which according to the records is the BB gun, injury to an elderly or disabled person, and unlawful restraint. All the suspects had bonds set at $300,000. Again, so many questions in this story. I mean, it's bizarre, but it's also just incredibly tragic. We don't know what else happened inside the home. There's still a lot of details that have yet to come out about how this could happen. We don't know the age of the victim in this case or anything about them other than them being allegedly abused. Their identity is being withheld by police. Joining us now to talk more about this case is retired NYPD detective Tom Smith, co-host of the Gold Shields podcast. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. I don't swear on this show, but it was one where I read this story and it's just like, what the bleep? I don't even know where to begin. I guess what stood out to you, like just reading through this? Because I'll be honest, I read this news article multiple times because it just seemed so bizarre and just like it can't be real, but according to police, it is.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first thing. You just nailed it, Chris. I read it 2 or 3 times to make sure it wasn't a movie script. It was just that bizarre. But to answer your question about what was the first thing that jumped out at me was how easy it was explained by the perpetrators. It was just like a thing. It wasn't hidden. They didn't try to cover it up. Once they got grabbed, they just gave up what they did, how they did it, why they did it. And it is one of the most bizarre cases and horrifying cases that we've done, together on your show, but I've read in a really long time.
Because, there's part of it too. And clearly you want suspects in these cases to give up what they did to, make sure you get justice for the victim. But it's like explaining the BB gun. It just seemed like it was just laying everything out. But then there's also some differences in terms of why this person allegedly was held against their will. I know the grandmother said, it was because she was, I guess, going to the bathroom in view of the neighbors. And then another person said, it was because she was stealing and the neighbors didn't like that. How do you, with 5 people, you come across this scene, how do you go about gathering information from these suspects as you're building a case?
Yeah, when you have multiple individuals that you're charging in a case, you're just doing each of them separately. And you're going to have different accounts of what happened. It's just like showing up to a scene and getting different witnesses to explain one scene. You'll get a bunch of different versions of it, of who did what and what happened there. But that's all you do. You can't, kind of make anything up. You take their statements as they are. And what you're going to do in laying out the 5 statements is just find commonalities in what they did. Each of them are going to be charged as they go along, but the important part is getting the commonality of all the statements lined up to make sure, you have it right. And in this case, they do. But it doesn't surprise me that you have certain accounts from certain people that are going to differ. That's just human nature of the way someone sees something or perceives something. So that's kind of common.
And it's just, there's one part of this I'm just going to read that she had been, she was handcuffed for months inside and outside of the house. She was repeatedly shot with this BB gun. It goes on to say that she was friends, the victim, with one of the females in the house. And then she says something along the lines of, at one point, they just didn't like her anymore, so they started chaining her up. when there are so many layers, I mean, how complicated does it get for law enforcement where you're trying to figure things out? And I know you're like gathering, and each case is different, but it just, even reading the arrest affidavit, it's just so hard to follow. And maybe part of it is because it's just shocking, but like, how do you actually figure out the narrative of specifically this is what happened, even when you have 5 different people and even 6 people, if you involve the victim, all telling very different stories?
Absolutely. And you know what you do? The good thing about this case, not that there's many good parts in it, well, you know, she's okay and she got saved, but you have the perpetrators. So there's no rush to get anything done. You got them. So now you just methodically go through some sort of timeline that you're going to build. That is one of the first things they're going to do. When did it start? Where's the middle? How did it end? And you're going to fill in the blanks when you come to the timeline of when certain things happen. And those are going to be fueled by the statements of those individuals. But I think the important one is going to be the victim, because she's going to lay out time frames and what each individual did. Remember, you know, they're going to try to roll on each other and who did what worse and who started it and all that. And that's a commonality between multiple perpetrators when you have them. But the victim statements are going to be really telling in this of who specifically did what when it came to this horrible crime.
And apparently, according to police, she was malnourished, she was in distress, she has these BB wounds, they say, on her. They had to cut the handcuffs off her because there is that physical evidence that will be important. What stands out to you with that physical evidence part? Because when you're building a case, like, you're going to have a victim saying one thing, you're going to have, you know, the suspect saying another. What role will the physical evidence play in prosecuting these suspects?
Oh, huge role. You're going to have the DNA, you know, like every case does now. That's always important. And then you have the one individual going to the store and buying a BB gun, you know, so that's going to be a big part in his motive and what he wanted to do when it came to this, victim. So all of that's going to play a role in it of were there purchases made, who might have bought what, you know, so those are going to be evidentiary gatherings that detectives are going to do methodically. Like I said before, everything's in front of them now. So to just go through their bank accounts, surveillances at stores, you know, social media, all that, communications between the 5 individuals is going to be very important when it comes to this.
Some of these captivity cases, and there's a few that we've done, and where someone is allegedly held against their will for, in some cases, years. There's ones that have been falling out of South Carolina recently where guys that, but it seems like it's complicated because you can have, and in this case, there's at least one suspect saying that actually this person, believe it or not, they said that they wanted this, they agreed to be put forward through this. And we don't know the age of the victim, but assuming that this victim is over the age of 21, I guess, how do, you know, if there's any sort of evidence that at one point they were a willing participant in this, and I can't imagine they would be, but if they're an adult, how does that complicate the way that some of these prosecutions can go, even though, I mean, just from the outside you read this, it seems like it's pretty clear cut about what happened.
Yeah, listen, in any case when it comes to a victim, you have perpetrators blaming victims. That's going to happen in any case that me and you have talked about and others we've discussed. But that's going to go forward, and the defense team is going to do their job. They're going to defend their clients and try to throw it onto the victim that she had a part in this. And again, social media communications. These 5 communicated with one another somehow about what was going on. Someone shot a text out, an email, a photo, whatever it might have been. So all that's going to be gathered to really put the emphasis on the perpetrators in this and not the victim. The one thing that stood out again was, where's this victim's family?
Yeah.
Where were they? You know, someone's quote unquote missing now. And if you go by the statements of the victim that she went over there a lot, I'm thinking one of her family members knew that as well. You know, so that was another big part of it, of how someone goes missing and no one's knocking on any doors for a number of months looking for someone.
Well, and the other part too is it seems like, just according to the affidavit and the media reports, that the neighbors are talked about a lot. That, oh, we chained her up because she was going to the bathroom and the neighbors didn't like that. Oh, she was stealing and the neighbors didn't like that. How aggressive would you be in certainly you need the neighbors maybe as witnesses, but I would think if you have someone who apparently has some sort of mental disability, which is what one of the persons said, and they're going to the bathroom in the yard, they're having, it just seems like that, where were the neighbors in reporting any of this? Because it just doesn't, I mean, and every family is every family, you know, everybody has different family dynamics. It just seems like from what's being described that this was out in the open and nobody said anything about it for months.
Yeah, you know, you kind of take it at the beginning of face value. You know, is that the victim's actions disrupting the neighbors? That might just be, you know, something the perpetrators are coming up with of an excuse of why they did something. So, you know, you're going to go and obviously interview me, that entire neighborhood. Everyone's going to get a knock on the door when it comes to this of what they heard, what they saw. You know, do they know these people? You know, the interactions that they've had. It wouldn't just be neighbors on either side of this house. I'd be talking to everyone in that neighborhood.
Have you ever covered a kidnapping case like this? I mean, these cases do come up. I mean, there are these cases where people are accused of holding people against their will. Recently, we've talked about Kimberly Sullivan in Connecticut who denies it, but she's accused of holding her stepson captive for 20 years. And that case is playing out. But I mean, just how common are these cases where, you know, allegations like this come out?
Yeah, the ones that I worked on were pretty much all drug related. You know, holding a family victim because someone owed somebody money. That was a big part, you know, in the city when I was working in the squad or even in narcotics that we ran across. And those are different. You handle them differently. You know who the bad guys are, and it's just a matter of locating them. But these, you know, are just flat out evil acts of 5 people who miraculously have the same mindset with injuring someone. You know, there's not one that stepped up and went, whoa, this might not be a good idea, everybody. You know, they all had the same mindset with this. And then they're doing it in front of these children that were in the house as well. And the children are giving an account of what they saw, you know, specifically with the BB gun, you know, and when the victim got shot with the BB gun. It's an absolute disgusting case. And, you know, I'm glad they got them all, and hats off to the responding officers who got there quick enough to make sure they got the victim and all the people were still there.
The victim in this case has mental health issues, according to one of the suspects and what we've read in the arrest affidavit. The 4-year-old who was in the house, according to the affidavit as well, like made a statement. I mean, they've obviously made, you know, the suspects have been made statements too. But as far as when you're figuring out what happened, and as this goes forward to a prosecution, is a victim who we don't know what mental disability she might have, like, does that create a challenge when it comes to building a case? Because I could see a defense attorney, and they're paid to do what they do and defend their clients to the best of their ability, could use that as something of saying like, well, actually she agreed to this, she didn't, you know, I could see that type of argument being made in court. Like, how do you push back on that when you're law enforcement and the prosecution?
Yeah, well, the prosecution really has to do a great job with getting the right people in the mental health field to interview her and go through step by step and really get an evaluation of the level of mental health that she's facing. That's going to play a big part in it. Like I said before, and you just said it too, Chris, the defense team has a job to do, and they're going to go at it any way they can. And defense attorneys are not, you know, subject to the same moral lines that me and you have. They're going to go after the victim as much as they can, but it's going to be up to the prosecution to make her a strong witness, even with some maybe challenges that she has, but making sure she knew everything that was going on at that time.
Because I also think too, I mean, we have these statements apparently that each of the suspects or the majority of them made laying out what happened inside this house. Once they lawyer up, what type of access as a detective would you get to those suspects ever again if you had additional questions as you're trying to figure things out?
Well, you're not. Once they lawyer up, you have to go through the lawyers. So the detectives, along with, because they're incarcerated now, along with the district attorney, would sit down with the attorneys for the perpetrators and filter through any questions that you have, any deals that want to get done, who's going to flip on who, and this is going to happen. You know, these deals are going to get made. You know, who had the lesser interactions with this individual that can give more of a testimony to the ones who really planned it, or abused her even more. Those talks are going to continue and be part of this prosecution without a doubt.
And working in law enforcement, I mean, you see things that, are just very difficult things to see, to say the least, things that, even if you've done this job for a long time. I just imagine this scene for whether it's the firefighters that showed up, even the neighbors, members of law enforcement, this woman who was allegedly chained to a piece of exercise equipment, naked from the waist down, and had received this type of abuse. I mean, just how do you handle seeing something so incredibly disturbing, but then at the same time having the strength to compartmentalize, interview 5 suspects, and figure out what was going on?
Yep, that's why law enforcement is a mental challenge as much as it is a physical challenge, because no matter what, you can't unsee anything you saw. It is going to be seared in your brain and you're never going to forget it. But you have to then take a step back and take a deep breath and understand the job that you need to do. And that is the successful prosecution of these people and the interviews that have to be done and the evidence gathering that has to be done. So you could be shocked for a little while before and even after, but in the middle, you have a job to do and they'll get it done.
Yeah, just a shocking case out of Texas. I still have so many questions, so we'll see what happens next. Retired NYPD Detective Tom Smith, co-host of the Gold Shields podcast. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much, Chris. Always a pleasure.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.